Imagine waking up tomorrow and feeling unstoppable, focused, energized, and ready to crush every challenge that comes your way. What if I told you that the secret isn't in working harder, learning more, or waiting for motivation? It's in one simple daily habit that can completely upgrade your life. Yes, just one action repeated every single day that rewires your mind, elevates your energy, and transforms the way you think, act, and achieve. Today, I'm going to show you how to take control of your mornings, your mindset, and your future so you stop surviving and start thriving. Consistency is the quiet force that shapes everything in your life, and most people underestimate it because it doesn't feel dramatic. It doesn't give you that big emotional high in the moment. It doesn't make you feel like you just changed your life overnight. But consistency is the thing that actually does change your life. Slowly, silently, powerfully, until one day you wake up and realize you've become a different human being. Think about it. Every day, whether you're aware of it or not, you're practicing something. You're either practicing discipline or practicing avoidance. You're practicing growth or practicing staying stuck. You're practicing self-belief or practicing self-doubt. And the truth is, the habit you repeat is the habit that becomes your life. People love the idea of transformation, but they resist the process because transformation doesn't happen in one moment. It happens through thousands of small choices that build on each other. Imagine a single drop of water hitting a stone. One drop does nothing. 10 drops do nothing. 100 drops, still nothing noticeable, but a drop every single day without fail over time reshapes the stone, not through force, through consistency. And your life works the exact same way. You don't need an explosion of effort. You need a drip of effort, daily, intentional, unwavering. That's what creates the shift. Most people fail not because they're incapable, but because they start and stop, start and stop, start and stop. They live in cycles of intensity instead of patterns of consistency. They push hard for a week, then disappear for a month. They commit when they feel motivated, then give up the moment discomfort shows up. And what they call failure is really just inconsistency wearing a mask. But when you commit to one daily habit, even a simple one, everything changes. Why? Because consistency builds identity. When you do something every day, your mind begins to rewrite the story you tell about yourself. Suddenly, you're no longer someone trying to improve. You're someone who improves. You're not trying to be disciplined. You are disciplined. You're not hoping to be confident. You act in ways that generate confidence. The habit becomes a part of who you are, not something you have to force yourself to do. And once your identity shifts, your actions naturally follow. You don't have to push yourself to show up. You show up because it's just what you do now. That's the real power. Consistency gives birth to momentum. Momentum gives birth to progress, and progress gives birth to a new standard for your life. But here's the part no one tells you: consistency isn't built by doing something for an hour once in a while. It's built by doing something for a few minutes every single day. People think they need to overhaul their life in one big move. They don't. They need one simple habit they can commit to daily without excuses. That's the habit that changes everything. And you know this already. You've had moments in your life where you were consistent, maybe in school, maybe in your career, maybe in a relationship. And because you kept showing up, even when you didn't feel like it, you got better. You got stronger. You made progress. That wasn't luck. That was consistency. The same principle works in every area of your life. Let me tell you something important. Consistency isn't about perfection. You don't need to do it flawlessly. You just need to do it regularly. There will be days you don't feel like it. Days when your mind will tell you it's not worth it. Days where excuses will feel louder than your commitment. But those are the days that matter most. Those are the days where you build the muscle. Because consistency is strengthened in the moments you want to quit but choose not to. It's like training in the gym. The muscle doesn't grow when it's easy. It grows when you push through that last rep. When your mind says enough and your spirit says one more. That's where the change happens. And your daily habit works the same way. It's not about doing it when it's convenient. It's about doing it until it becomes a part of you. And here's something else. Consistency creates clarity. When you show up for yourself every day, even for a few minutes, you stop living in confusion. You stop overthinking. You stop second guessing. Suddenly, you're not just reacting to life, you're directing it. You're in motion. You're not stuck in your head because you're too busy taking action. And action always destroys doubt. People wait for clarity before they act, but clarity comes from acting consistently. One simple habit can give you that. It becomes the anchor of your day. It grounds you, energizes you, focuses you. It reminds you of who you're becoming and why you're doing it. And over time, that habit becomes the foundation for everything else you want to build. If you've ever looked back at your life and thought, I should be further by now, you're not alone. But the solution isn't to try harder. It's to show up consistently, even with something small, because that's what creates real lasting change. Not the big dramatic moments, but the quiet ones, the choices no one sees, the habits no one applauds, the small wins you accumulate when no one is watching. That's where transformation begins. And it begins with you deciding right now that you're done starting over. You're done depending on motivation. You're done letting days slip by. You're choosing to become someone who shows up every single day, not perfectly, just consistently, because consistency doesn't just change your results. It changes your identity. It changes your confidence. It changes your life. And it all begins with one simple daily habit. You have to understand something fundamental about life. The way you start your day determines the way you live your day. Most people underestimate this because they believe life is about big, dramatic events, but it's not. Life is about the small, repeated actions that shape your energy, your focus, and your decisions. The moment you wake up, you have a choice. You can let your day control you, or you can control your day. And the single habit I'm talking about, the one that can completely upgrade your life, is the habit that sets the tone for every single moment after that. The first few minutes of your day are the most powerful. They are a blank canvas. If you start them passively, scrolling through your phone, reacting to notifications, letting other people's agendas dictate your thoughts, you are giving your power away. But if you start them intentionally, if you do something that aligns your mind, body, and emotions, you set up a chain reaction that carries through every hour, every decision, every interaction. That's the real secret to transformation. It's not the long hours you work or the extreme sacrifices you make. It's the moments at the start of the day that prime everything else. Think about it. When you wake up and immediately anchor yourself in purpose, gratitude, and focus, your brain releases chemicals that fuel energy, clarity, and positivity. You feel alive. You feel unstoppable. Even small actions like writing down 3 things you're grateful for, visualizing the life you want, or simply taking a few deep breaths to center yourself can completely change your physiology, your emotions, and the trajectory of your day. This isn't magic. It's science. It's the way your nervous system works. And the moment you understand, you realize you don't need luck to have a great day. You need a system. The people who succeed, the people who are fulfilled, the people who seem to have it all together, they didn't get there by waiting for the perfect moment. They got there by creating a daily ritual that gives them control. They start their day with intention, and that intention flows into their actions, their decisions, and their results. Your one simple habit does exactly that. It's not about complexity. It's about consistency applied at the most critical time of day. Most people think a habit is just something you do. They believe that if they check it off their list, they've succeeded. But the truth is, a habit is far more powerful when it touches your mind, your body, and your emotions simultaneously. When you do this daily ritual, you don't just mark it off a checklist. You change the way you think, the way you feel, and the way you act. Your mind becomes clear. Your emotions become aligned. Your body becomes energized. Suddenly, you're not just reacting to life, you're shaping it. And here's the thing. When you start the day intentionally, the rest of your day becomes easier. You make better decisions. You're less likely to react emotionally to challenges. You find solutions faster because your mind is focused. You interact with people more effectively because your emotional state is strong. You tackle problems with confidence instead of anxiety. This is what people mean when they say your morning sets the tone. It's not just a cliche. It's the foundation of your success, happiness, and fulfillment. Now, you might be thinking, but I don't have time. My mornings are hectic. I can't do a complicated routine. That's exactly why the habit has to be simple. It's not about spending hours meditating or journaling or working out. It's about committing a few focused, intentional minutes to yourself every day. That's all it takes to create the momentum that compounds over weeks, months, and years. Small actions taken consistently lead to extraordinary results. Let me give you an example. Imagine waking up every day and taking 3 minutes to visualize your ideal day. How you want to feel, what you want to accomplish, and who you want to be in every interaction. 3 minutes, that's it. In those 3 minutes, your brain starts to form the blueprint of your day. You begin to see solutions instead of problems. You notice opportunities instead of obstacles. You align your energy toward the person you want to become, and suddenly the day unfolds differently. That's the power of this one simple habit. And it works because it's not just mental, it's emotional. Most people wake up feeling scattered, stressed, or overwhelmed. They spend the first hour reacting instead of acting. But when you anchor yourself in a daily ritual, you create a sense of control. You feel centered. You feel alive, you feel unstoppable. And when you feel unstoppable, you act unstoppable. Your energy attracts people, opportunities, and circumstances that match your state. That's why the habit isn't just a practice, it's a transformation. Here's the key. It doesn't matter what your life looks like right now. You might feel stuck. You might feel frustrated. You might feel like you've tried everything and nothing works. None of that matters. What matters is the next moment, the next choice, the next habit you commit to. When you start each day with intention, everything else starts to fall into place. It's like setting the autopilot of your life to the direction you actually want to go. And over time, you'll notice something incredible. Your mornings start to feel different, yes, but more importantly, your life starts to feel different. You start taking actions that align with your goals without forcing yourself. You start making decisions that reflect your highest self without struggle. You begin to attract results, relationships, and experiences that match your intention, all because of a few minutes you committed to yourself at the start of the day. People often underestimate the power of these small daily moments because they can't see the immediate impact. But transformation is never instant. It's gradual. It's invisible at first, and then one day you look back and realize you're a completely different person. You've upgraded your life not through luck, not through dramatic effort, but through one simple daily habit that you committed to with discipline, focus, and purpose. This is why the habit matters more than motivation. Motivation is fleeting. It comes and goes. But a daily habit done consistently doesn't depend on how you feel. It depends on what you decide. And the moment you decide to take control of your mornings, you take control of your life. So start now. Take a few minutes every morning. Center your mind. Align your emotions. Commit your energy to your goals and your vision, because the way you start your day doesn't just influence the day, it determines the trajectory of your life. And once you understand this, everything changes. Most people live their lives trapped in invisible patterns, routines that keep them stuck in the same place year after year. They feel frustrated, overwhelmed, or defeated, but they can't see why. The reason is simple. Habits, actions, and choices repeated over time create momentum. And if those habits are unconscious, unhelpful, or limiting, they don't just fail to serve you, they actually keep you small. They chain you to mediocrity. And the only way to break free is to recognize these patterns and replace them with intentional actions that push you toward growth. Limiting patterns are deceptive. They don't feel like chains. They feel like comfort. They feel familiar. They feel like the path of least resistance. Most people mistake comfort for safety when in reality it's holding them back. Think about the ways you sabotage yourself without even realizing it. Waking up and scrolling through your phone for an hour before your day starts, procrastinating on what matters most, avoiding tough conversations, giving in to negative self-talk, or simply waiting for motivation to appear. Each of these actions might seem small on its own, but compounded over weeks, months, and years, they shape a life that falls far short of your potential. Here's the truth. Change doesn't come from doing more of what you're already doing. You can't escape mediocrity by adding distractions to your routine or hoping for luck to show up. The only way to grow is to disrupt the patterns that are keeping you stuck. That disruption is uncomfortable because your brain hates uncertainty. It wants to repeat what's safe, predictable, and familiar. That's why most people avoid the very things that could transform their lives. But if you can embrace discomfort and step into the actions that matter, you'll break free. You'll open the door to a life you didn't think was possible. One of the biggest reasons people stay in limiting patterns is that they don't take ownership of their choices. They blame circumstances, blame other people, or wait for someone to rescue them. But the moment you accept responsibility for where you are, you reclaim your power. You see, no one else can do the work for you. No one else can decide that you're going to show up, push yourself, and do the things that feel uncomfortable but necessary. That decision is yours. And the moment you make it, you create a shift in energy, mindset, and possibility. Breaking free from limiting patterns isn't about dramatic, immediate transformation. It's about identifying the small habits, thoughts, and actions that are holding you back, and systematically replacing them with behaviors that move you forward. That's why this one daily habit I'm talking about is so powerful. It creates a saint rupture that interrupts the old cycles and replaces them with momentum. When you show up consistently, even with something small, you begin to overwrite the old narrative about who you are and what you're capable of. You begin to see yourself not as someone stuck in frustration, but as someone moving toward mastery. People often resist this because it requires humility. You have to admit that some of the ways you've been living aren't working. That's hard. Pride makes you defend your routines even when they're sabotaging you. But the moment you step back and honestly assess what's keeping you stuck, you gain clarity. And clarity is the first step toward action. Once you see the patterns, you can design your days intentionally. You can make the conscious choice to act differently, to speak differently, to think differently. And that small shift, when done daily, compounds into a life that looks completely different from the one you've been living. Limiting patterns show up in every area of life. In health, they show up as procrastination, poor habits, or ignoring what your body needs. In relationships, they show up as fear, avoidance, or settling for less than you deserve. In career and finances, they show up as excuses, distractions, or failure to plan. And in personal growth, they show up as inaction, self-doubt, or repeating old stories that don't serve you. These patterns are interconnected. Change one, and the ripple effect transforms all the others. That's the power of intentional daily habits. They don't just impact one area, they reprogram your entire life. But breaking patterns requires more than just knowledge. It requires courage. Courage to face yourself honestly. Courage to embrace discomfort. Courage to do what others aren't willing to do consistently. Most people stop when they feel fear, frustration, or resistance. That's why most people stay stuck. But you, the person listening right now, have a choice. You can let discomfort stop you, or you can let it signal that you're on the right path, because growth always feels uncomfortable before it feels natural. And here's a secret. The very thing that feels hardest at first eventually becomes your greatest strength. The moment you create a daily habit that interrupts limiting patterns, you start to feel different. You start to think differently. You start to act differently. And when that happens, you no longer need to rely on motivation. Motivation is fleeting. It comes and goes. But the structure of habit, repeated daily, carries you through when motivation fades. That's why the one simple habit I'm sharing is more than a task. It's a tool that breaks the chains of limitation. Now, I want you to imagine your life if you never interrupted those patterns. Imagine another year, another 2 years, another decade, living the same way, frustrated, overwhelmed, and wondering why nothing changes. That's not a threat. That's reality if you stay passive. Most people are living that reality right now, but you don't have to. You can step off the treadmill of repetition and take control. You can break the cycles that no longer serve you. You can do something every single day that moves you closer to your potential. And that's the beauty of one daily habit. It's simple, it's repeatable, it doesn't demand perfection, but it does demand commitment. It doesn't demand hours of effort. It demands consistency, and consistency destroys limitation. Consistency replaces frustration with confidence. Consistency replaces fear with courage. Consistency replaces inaction with momentum. And momentum transforms your life in ways that feel almost effortless because the foundation is already there. You just built it one step at a time. So start by noticing your patterns. Be honest about the HA. Bits that keep you stuck. Decide which ones you're willing to let go of and commit to one action every day that rewires those patterns in a positive direction. Over time, those small choices accumulate. They become a new way of being. They become the standard for how you operate. They become the engine that drives your transformation. Change is not mysterious. It's not luck. It's not about being the smartest or the most talented. Change is about awareness, courage, and daily action. And the moment you create a habit that interrupts limiting patterns, you set yourself free, because breaking free from what holds you back is not just a step towards success. It's a step toward who you were always meant to become. Every action you take, every decision you make, every habit you repeat, it doesn't exist in isolation. Life works in a ripple effect. One small change, one intentional choice, one simple habit can create consequences that spread across every area of your life in ways you may not even realize at first. Most people underestimate this because they think transformation has to be dramatic, visible, or immediate. But real transformation works quietly, invisibly, subtly, until suddenly you wake up and everything looks different. Think about it like tossing a pebble into a pond. The initial splash is small, it's contained, but the ripples continue outward, reaching places you didn't even expect. That's exactly what happens when you commit to one daily habit that matters. You start with a simple action, a moment of focus, a positive choice, a step toward growth, and it begins to influence every other decision, every other relationship, every other outcome. And because life is interconnected, the impact multiplies, often far beyond what you imagine. For example, let's say your daily habit is dedicating 10 minutes to focus on your personal growth, whether through journal, meditation, or visualization. That small action doesn't just stay in that 10-minute window. It changes your mindset, which changes your energy, which changes how you show up at work, at home, and in your relationships. You approach challenges with more clarity. You respond to conflict with calm instead of reaction. You see opportunities that others miss because your mind is tuned to possibility instead of limitation. That's the ripple effect in action, and it doesn't stop there. Once momentum builds in one area, it naturally spills over into others. People who commit to a simple daily habit of exercise notice not only improved health, but also increased confidence, mental clarity, and energy. People who commit to a habit of gratitude notice their relationships improve because they bring positivity into every interaction. People who commit to consistent learning notice new opportunities arise because they're prepared to see them. That's the extraordinary power of one habit. It's not confined to a single area of life. It transforms everything. Most people fail to appreciate this because they expect instant results. They want to see the change immediately. They want a sudden breakthrough. But growth is not linear, and life's most powerful transformations are compounding. The small, intentional actions you take today may feel insignificant, but over weeks, months, and years, they add up to something extraordinary. That's why focusing on consistency over intensity is so important. One daily habit maintained over time becomes a catalyst for massive transformation because it generates a chain reaction in your life. And here's another truth that most people overlook. The ripple effect isn't just about positive change. The same principle works in reverse. Negative patterns, neglect, and inaction also ripple outward. A habit of procrastination doesn't just delay a sin, daily task. It creates stress, frustration, and tension that spill into your relationships, your health, and your opportunities. A habit of negativity or complaint doesn't just affect your mood, it affects the people around you, the energy you bring into every room, and the results you attract. That's why interrupting these patterns and replacing them with a simple, positive daily habit is so critical. One small step toward improvement can override years of accumulated limitation if done consistently. Imagine a life where every day you commit just a few minutes to something that empowers you. Maybe it's setting goals. Maybe it's focusing on gratitude. Maybe it's a short exercise or reflection. The immediate benefits are subtle: clarity, focus, calm, or confidence. But over time, the ripple effect begins to manifest in ways that feel almost miraculous. Opportunities you didn't see before start to appear. Relationships improve naturally because your energy shifts. You start attracting people, situations, and resources that align with the life you want to create. That's the magic of one consistent habit. It doesn't just add to your life, it multiplies it. The ripple effect also works because your actions influence your identity. Every day you show up, every day you commit to growth, you begin to see yourself differently. You no longer think of yourself as someone who struggles, someone who reacts, someone who waits for life to happen. You start to see yourself as someone capable, someone intentional, someone who creates results. And identity is the most powerful driver of behavior. Once your self-image shifts, your habits, choices, and decisions automatically align with that new identity. In other words, your daily habit doesn't just improve your life externally, it rewires who you are internally, and that change radiates outward into every aspect of your life. One of the most powerful aspects of this ripple effect is how it compounds over time. Most people focus on immediate results, but the real magic happens when you persist day after day, week after week, month after month. The cumulative impact becomes exponential. Just like money invested consistently grows through the power of compounding, your life improves exponentially when you invest in yourself consistently. That's why a single simple daily habit can eventually touch every area of your existence: your health, your relationships, your career, your emotional well-being, your finances, and even your sense of purpose. And here's the point many people miss. The ripple effect doesn't require perfection. You don't have to execute flawlessly. You don't have to spend hours every day, and you don't need dramatic change overnight. What matters is the action repeated consistently with intention. Each time you show up, each time you honor the habit, you extend the ripple further. You strengthen the pattern. You reinforce the trajectory. Over time, these ripples coalesce into a wave of transformation that carries you to new levels of performance, fulfillment, and freedom. Most people underestimate how connected life really is. They compartmentalize their habits, thinking that what they do in one area won't affect another. But that's not how life works. Every thought, action, and decision has consequences. When you commit to a positive daily habit, it touches everything. Your energy affects how you interact with your family. Your mindset affects the way you handle challenges at work. Your focus affects the quality of your decisions. Your consistency influences the people around you. That's why the ripple effect is so powerful. It turns one small intentional choice into a life-changing momentum machine. And here's one more thing. The ripple effect doesn't just improve your life, it inspires others. People notice change, even subtle change. Your consistency, your focus, your energy, your results. They send a signal to the world that transformation is possible. And when others see you rise, it encourages them to rise as well. One habit doesn't just impact you, it impacts everyone around you, creating a network of influence that spreads far beyond what you can see. That's the invisible power of what you do every day, the unseen impact that expands outward in ways you can't even predict. So start small. Focus on one simple habit you can do consistently. Commit to it, repeat it daily, honor it, even when it's hard. And over time, watch as the ripples begin to spread. Opportunities, energy, confidence, and clarity all begin to flow naturally into your life. The habit itself becomes the seed, and everything else grows from it, like branches, leaves, and flowers of a tree you've nurtured every single day. And soon you realize that life isn't something that happens to you. It's something you actively create, because one small, consistent action can ripple through your life in ways that feel unstoppable. Most people think habits are about doing things, but that's only half the story. Habits are not just actions, they are declarations about who you believe you are. Every time you repeat a behavior, you're telling yourself a story, whether consciously or unconsciously, about your identity. That's why change that sticks doesn't come from forcing yourself to do something new for a few days or weeks. It comes from shifting the way you see yourself. When you decide that you are the kind of person who consistently shows up, who acts with purpose, who prioritizes growth, your actions naturally follow. You stop struggling. You stop relying on motivation because motivation is temporary. You become unstoppable, not because you are forcing yourself to act, but because why? Our identity is already aligned with the action. Think about it for a moment. If you see yourself as someone who procrastinates, who avoids challenges, who waits for the right moment, then every time you try to do something difficult, you're fighting against your identity. It's like swimming upstream. You push, you struggle, you feel exhausted, and eventually you give up. But if you begin to see yourself differently, if you decide, I am someone who takes action, I am someone who invests in myself, I am someone who commits to growth, then everything changes. The very act of aligning your identity with your desired outcome transforms resistance into momentum. You stop swimming upstream because suddenly you're flowing with the current. This is why habits that change your life are more about who you become than what you do. The daily habit I'm talking about is not just a task on your checklist. It's a tool to reinforce the identity you want to embody. Each time you do it, you're telling yourself a story. I am disciplined. I am committed. I am capable of growth. And over time, that story becomes your truth. You no longer have to force yourself into action because you are acting in alignment with the person you have decided to be. Most people underestimate the power of identity. They focus on outcomes instead of the person they need to become to achieve those outcomes. They think, if I just reach this goal, I'll feel successful. If I just make this amount of money, I'll feel confident. If I just lose this weight, I'll feel in control. Here's the truth. Transformation happens first on the inside. You become the person who can naturally produce those results. You become the type of person who is capable of sustaining success, maintaining health, building meaningful relationships, and living with purpose. The daily habit works because it rewires your identity bit by bit, day by day. Consider someone who wants to become more disciplined. They can read books, attend seminars, even make grand plans, but without identity change, discipline remains a constant struggle. They will fall off the wagon at the first sign of resistance. But if they see themselves as a disciplined person, if they make the decision, this is who I am, then the habit of discipline no longer feels like a burden. It becomes an extension of their identity. Every small action repeated consistently reinforces this new sense of self. Every time they follow through, they are strengthening the belief that discipline is who they are. That belief creates consistency, and consistency compounds into massive results. The remarkable thing about identity-based habits is that they create momentum in ways that actions alone cannot. When your identity shifts, your mindset shifts, your emotions shift, and your behaviors naturally align with that shift. You act differently without overthinking, without struggling against yourself. You make decisions automatically that reinforce the life you want to live. You stop tolerating things that don't serve you. You start seeking opportunities that elevate you. The person you are becoming dictates the results you get far more than any single strategy, tactic, or external effort. And this is why it's so important to focus on the habit that reinforces your identity every single day. It's not enough to do it once or twice a week. True transformation requires daily reinforcement because your identity is sculpted through repetition. Every time you engage in the habit, You are etching into your mind and your nervous system saying, this is who I am, this is what I do, this is the standard I live by. Over time, this becomes automatic. You no longer have to force yourself. You no longer have to negotiate with yourself. You simply act as the person you've chosen to become. Most people resist identity work because it feels intangible. They want something measurable, visible, immediate. But identity is the foundation for everything. Without it, habits fail. Without it, results are temporary. With it, habits stick. With it, results compound. With it, transformation becomes inevitable. That's why this one daily habit is so much more than a habit. It's a vehicle for becoming the person capable of living a life that exceeds your expectations. Think about your life for a moment. If you were the person you want to be, how would you act differently today? How would you handle challenges? How would you interact with people? What choices would you make without hesitation? The daily habit is a rehearsal, a practice ground, a laboratory where you test and prove to yourself that you are that person. And with each repetition, you strengthen the belief until it becomes unshakable. You no longer hope to be that person. You are that person. And here's the beauty of it. Once your identity shifts, the ripple effect begins. Your decisions, your energy, your focus, your resilience, they all align with the person you've become. You stop wasting time on distractions. You stop tolerating mediocrity. You stop waiting for permission or luck. You act naturally, consistently, and powerfully. The daily habit is no longer something you do. It is a reflection of who you are. It becomes automatic. It becomes unstoppable. Most people never realize the power they have because they operate from a place of I. Inconsistency and identity misalignment. They try to impose change from the outside in instead of cultivating it from the inside out. The moment you focus on identity, everything shifts. You stop relying on external circumstances to dictate your life. You stop waiting for motivation, inspiration, or perfect timing. You become the architect of your life because your actions naturally flow from the person you've decided to be. So the real question isn't, what do I need to do today? The real question is, who do I need to become to live the life I want? And the answer is reflected in the habit you commit to every single day. That habit reinforces the identity you are cultivating. That habit proves to yourself who you are and what you are capable of. And over time, it rewires your mind, your body, your emotions, and your life in ways that no quick fix or external strategy ever could. Every time you engage in this habit, you are sending a powerful message to yourself. I am capable. I am committed. I am consistent. I am someone who takes action toward growth every single day. Those statements, repeated through action, become your truth. Your identity solidifies. Your behaviors align. Your life transforms. And all of it begins with the decision to show up for yourself consistently, intentionally, and without compromise. Because real mastery, real transformation, and lasting success are not about what you do. They are about who you become. Action is where transformation begins. You can understand every principle, listen to every speech, read every book, and know every strategy, but nothing changes until you act. Most people wait for the perfect moment, the perfect mood, the perfect alignment of circumstances, and they end up waiting their entire life. The truth is, the perfect moment never comes. Life doesn't hand you clarity on a silver platter. Life rewards those who decide in this moment to take action even when conditions aren't ideal. That's why this one simple daily habit isn't just a habit. It's your gateway to creating momentum, progress, and results that compound over time. The key to taking action is to start small. People overcomplicate transformation. They believe that to create change, they must overhaul every aspect of their lives at once. They set massive goals, create rigid plans, and then get discouraged when they fail to execute perfectly. But transformation doesn't happen through extremes. It happens through small, consistent steps that reinforce the direction you want to go. One simple habit done daily is enough to create a foundation. That foundation grows stronger every day. That foundation creates momentum. And momentum, once it builds, is unstoppable. It's important to understand why immediate action is so powerful. When you act, you break the cycle of overthinking. Most people get stuck because they analyze, they hesitate, they wait for certainty, but certainty is an illusion. Life is unpredictable, and waiting for perfect conditions is a recipe for stagnation. Action, no matter how small, creates clarity. The moment you do something, even imperfectly, your mind adjusts. You gain feedback, you learn, you refine, you move forward. Action transforms fear into confidence because it proves to yourself that you are capable of moving, of doing, of creating. Consistency is the engine and action is the fuel. A daily habit is powerful because it forces you to act even when you don't feel motivated, even when you feel tired, even when resistance shows up. The first step is often the hardest. The first minute is always the toughest, but the second you commit, the chain reaction begins. Action builds confidence. Confidence fuels momentum, and momentum creates results. That's the difference between people who dream about change and people who live it. Most people underestimate the power of starting now. They believe that waiting, planning, or preparing is the same as progress, but it's not. Progress comes from showing up, from doing, from committing to the habit daily. Even small actions compound into massive impact over time. 10 minutes of focused action every day, repeated consistently, is more powerful than hours of sporadic effort. It's not about doing more, it's about doing consistently. That's how transformation is built. That's how results multiply. And action creates a feedback loop. Each day you engage in your habit, you reinforce your identity. You prove to yourself that you are someone who acts, someone who follows through, someone who is committed to growth. That reinforcement strengthens your confidence and resilience. It makes the next day easier and the next step more natural. Action isn't just about the immediate result. It's about the cumulative effect on your mindset, your identity, and your trajectory. Here's another truth. Action eliminates doubt. The moment you take a step, you shift from thinking to doing. Most people fail not because they lack ability, but because they overthink, they second guess, and they wait. Doubt is the enemy of progress. Action silences doubt. It creates proof. It shows you that you are capable. It shows you that momentum is possible. And once you experience momentum, it becomes self-reinforcing. You take more action because you see the results, and the results encourage even more action. Accountability is also a key part of action. Habits stick when they are tracked, measured, and observed. When you commit publicly or to yourself in a tangible way, it increases your likelihood of following through. Action without accountability is weaker because it relies entirely on fleeting motivation. Action with accountability, even a simple form of tracking, becomes unstoppable because it reinforces consistency and aligns behavior with intention. That's why daily habits are so effective. They create a system for accountability that carries you forward even when motivation fades. People often wait for dramatic transformation thinking that massive action is the solution, but the reality is that massive action without consistency often leads to burnout and failure. Daily action, focused and intentional, builds the results that massive effort alone cannot. It creates sustainable growth. It rewires your habits. It develops the mental and emotional strength necessary to handle challenges and setbacks. And over time, that small daily commitment produces exponential results that far surpass what people imagine possible. The most important thing about action is that it bridges the gap between where you are and where you want to be. Knowledge alone cannot bridge that gap. Motivation alone cannot bridge that gap. Desire alone cannot bridge that gap. Only action can. And the beautiful part is that once you commit to this one daily habit, it becomes self-reinforcing. The habit ensures action. Action builds momentum. Momentum creates results. Results build confidence. Confidence inspires more action. And over time, your life is transformed because you chose to act when others hesitated. You also have to recognize that action is imperfect. Most people wait to act until they have everything figured out, until conditions are perfect, until fear is gone, but fear never fully disappears. Perfection is an illusion. Growth, progress, and transformation require imperfect action taken consistently. Each attempt, each step forward teaches you something. Each action you take builds resilience, competence, and clarity. The habit doesn't demand perfection. It demands participation. It demands showing up again and again and proving to yourself that you can create results even when it feels hard. And once you begin taking action daily, you start to see opportunities everywhere. Your perception shifts. You notice solutions you didn't see before. You take initiative in areas where you once waited. You find ways to solve problems instead of being paralyzed by them. That's the power of momentum. It opens doors that used to feel closed. It energizes your mind, and it builds a cycle of progress that can't be stopped. Finally, action changes your relationship with time. Most people complain about not having enough time, but the truth is that time expands for those who act consistently. When you act daily, you prioritize what matters. You focus your energy on what produces results. You become more efficient, more resourceful, and more empowered. Daily action transforms not only what you accomplish, but how you experience life, giving you control, purpose, and direction. So the moment to act is now, not tomorrow, not next week, not when conditions are perfect. Right now, decide to commit to this one daily habit, take that first step, and then the next, and then the next. Each action compounds. Each step reinforces your identity. Each repetition builds momentum. And over time, the life you've imagined becomes the life you live. Because transformation doesn't happen through thought, desire, or hope. It happens through action.